The following action research is aimed at how I can improve my practice and student engagement through creative, student-centered conversation. This research will be conducted in a low socioeconomic status government public school. The following data on this school was collected from the School Annual Report 2020 and My School. This school is located in Sydney Southwest and consists of 335 students. The student ratio is 182 boys to 153 girls. The school is based in a low socioeconomic area and 84% of the students are socio-educationally disadvantaged, which means this school is in the ICSEA bottom 15th percentile. There are 35% of students from a non-English speaking background and 17% of students have an Indigenous background. The schools thrive in professional development as webinars are promoted weekly in communication meetings. Moreover, teachers share lesson plans across their stage to ease the workload and teach with a plethora of strategies. The school also rewards students who have displayed positive behaviour and students who have reached more than 90% attendance in each term. The research will be conducted within a Stage 3 class with 28 students containing 15 boys and 13 girls. There are a range of culturally, academic and socially diverse learners. 3 students were Indigenous and 1 EALD. 13 students required behavioural management, with 2 students requiring intensive support in this area. 8 students require social support with diagnosis, including autism and anxiety. Academic support included 7 emerging students and 4 students who required additional extension activities. Within the classroom was set up in rows facing the front of the room and strict assigned seating was designed. Students were not engaged in the content, which correlates with the significant number of students requiring behavioural management. Students were constantly working independently and not able to contribute to lesson ideas. Lessons were teacher-focused and no independence or risk-taking was provided to students. Minimal collaboration and ownership of education and lack of perceived worth in education led me to my research question of how can I develop engagement and interest through student-centered conversation? Dialogic thinking is a 21st century learning approach that promotes forward thinking through discussion, reflection, and feedback. This pedagogy promotes voice and inclusion through group work and interaction. These learning experiences allow for students of diverse abilities to interact and engage in the content. This therefore aligns well with the MEE framework, as the 4 elements of an insider classroom all require dialogic teaching. Through observation and evaluation of student achievement, I can see that students were disengaged and lacking optimal results in the mathematics classes due to their student-centered approach, lack of collaboration with peers, and limited link to their real-life experience. The implementation of dialogic teaching will result in students being more engaged and achieve higher academic results with higher retention rates. Some may argue that classroom talk has been evident in the learning experience for many decades and question why dialogic teaching is a 21st century pedagogy. More than talk, dialogic teaching involves inquiry, critical thinking, acknowledging perspective, and constructing interpretations. Dialogic teaching focuses on interaction of all parties in the learning experience, rather than the students being passive or the teachers being the sole provider of the content. This pedagogy will improve social skills, skills essential for future work environments, inclusion, and the learning environment overall. This pedagogy will also target the New South Wales syllabus general capabilities and therefore appeals to a diverse group of learners. If implemented, this action research will create a safe and supportive environment for both students and teachers. The constant feedback provided will allow for voice and promote belonging within the classroom, which further develops the student well-being. Behavioural management will also be minimised in this environment, as students are engaged and being in task. Challenging students to adopt a growth mindset will enhance student learning when they are required to persist to achieve the outcome. Furthermore, trial and error will build students' confidence when they achieve the outcome. A growth mindset will be needed when students listen to alternate perspectives and feedback from others. The limitations on this research will be the basis of students allowing to communicate and lead the conversation. Applying dialogic teaching will be effective once there is a strong teacher-student relationship. Furthermore, Students do not understand perspectives until the age of 7 and therefore won't understand how to reflect and acknowledge perspective. If this is applied in kindergarten stage 1, these spaces will focus less on the understanding of perspective and more on the social skills. Lastly, behaviour management skills will be required as students can easily get distracted with off-content discussion. It is therefore evident that the benefits of dialogic talk in the classroom would outweigh the limitations of this pedagogy. Dialogic thinking is a 21st century learning approach that promotes forward thinking through discussion, reflection, and feedback. The pedagogy promotes voice and inclusion through group work and interaction. These learning experiences allow for students of diverse abilities to interact and engage in the content. Dialogic thinking therefore aligns well with the MEE framework, as the 4 elements of an inside classroom all require dialogic teaching. The integration of dialogic teaching will boost student morale and academic growth, as student interaction will promote belonging through voice and perspective. Moreover, academic growth will thrive as students will be enjoying the content while engaging through interactive and inquiry-based learning, which is why this teaching approach fits well with my personal teaching pedagogy. Please refer to the following 3 slides to how dialogic teaching will be implemented in the classroom. These experiences link to data in math and also PDHPE, as students are building their interpersonal skills to promote inclusion and build connections while simultaneously collecting and graphing data in a group. The data will be analysed through the MEE framework to analyse student engagement. The New South Wales syllabus will be used to assess student achievement. Collecting data during this time is essential to be able to measure whether the implementation of dialogic thinking is effective. I've incorporated 3 types of data sources into my learning experience: conversational data, student self-reflection, and work samples. Spread across each lesson, students will participate in these activities to assist with the progression of dialogic teaching. Student self-reflection is placed into learning experience 1 and 3. This is to compare students' final response with their first response. There will be 8 questions that each student will need to answer via a piece of paper or through ICT. The questions will target students' ability to engage effectively, cognitively, and operatively, as this aligns well with the E section in MEE framework. This tool allows students to process the content and acknowledge the strengths they brought and the skills that need to be improved. Students will complete the graph in Excel, where it can be marked through an online platform. This links to dialogic teaching, as their ability to create the graph is based on their ability to take on audio information. The work samples will provide a clear understanding of how they are cognitively engaging in the content while working with their peers to reach student achievement. As you can see, this is an observation schedule. This type of data is useful as it allows for understanding of what environment the students work most effective in. This source will be performed throughout every lesson to ensure the progress of students' understanding that is accurate. Notes will be recorded on student discussion and the communication they add during these discussions. These notes will solely focus on student engagement with dialogic thinking and the MEE framework. Students will be requiring support if they are unable to relate or add to conversation in any way, as well as answering with closed responses. At level will be students who add to conversation and further inquire about the topic. Those students who require further extending will be students who display higher order thinking to engage in content and hypothesize developed thoughts which lead to the future research. This data will be analysed through markers of engagement, markers of achievement, as well as markers of disengagement. For student self-assessment, this assessment is important for dialogic thinking, as input of conversation requires confidence to have your input. Self-assessment is therefore a measure of self-confidence to create a classroom with students using dialogic teaching effectively. This form of assessment will be assessed against the general capabilities found in the New South Wales syllabus. The self-assessment will outline rating of personal and social capability, ICT ability due to the Google Forms, and finally, their confidence in critical and creative thinking. Moving over to work samples. This will be annotated with the general capabilities to showcase the personal and social capabilities and critical and creative thinking. The work samples will focus on achievement through aligning with the outcomes, but also attaining engagement indicators through the working out and grit to reach the end result. For observation, the observation is very subjective, but it can also be objective, with comments written down about the speech made by students. This observation table aims to focus on comments that is made by the students in class, which shows engagement, inquiry, and grit. This will be measured by the questions and statements being made by students. If the responses include in-task inquiry rather than on-task compliance, then the table section will be marked sufficient for each category. These three key focus areas allow for a deepened understanding of the students' engagement levels, which works simultaneously with student achievement levels. Through extensive research, I have concluded that students' motivation, engagement, and achievement will improve immensely with the incorporation of dialogic teaching. The implementation of the 4 elements of Inside a Classroom will allow for students to discuss perspectives, reflect on their personal efforts, take deepened ownership of learning, and receive feedback from their peers and teacher. Creating an improved learning experience with the implementation of dialogic teaching meets the standard 3.6 as the new learning experience improves the student learning. Dialogic teaching improves attitudes toward maths as students are interacting, problem solving, and taking ownership. I believe students would have a greater quality of learning as interaction would have discovered that students were in task rather than on task. By incorporating this pedagogy into my practice, student attitudes towards mathematics would have flipped on its head. Instead of dreading learning mathematics, students would have a school is for me attitude. This will be achieved through kinesthetic learning, interaction, and group work. Research indicates that interaction and group work improve academic achievement. This action research has allowed me to learn new strategies that will benefit my future teaching. Dialogic teaching opens a pathway of confidence and social skills, which further promotes belonging and voice within the classroom. This learning strategy will be successful with further professional development, with the focus on how to assess 21st century pedagogy. Teaching mathematics with dialogic thinking will allow students to be excited to learn as they have more ownership, their risk-taking, and using their problem-solving skills. Taking on dialogic teaching in the future will allow for an inclusive environment and, therefore, more research on how to successfully link dialogic teaching and building a safe classroom must be focused on. This action research, if implemented will hit the professional standards 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 as both teachers and students are developing their knowledge and awareness through this pedagogy.